long time ago, my grandfather, Harry John Score, fired up my imagination and instilled in me a deep love for history with countless stories of his past. Now, I am a grandfather with stories of my own to share with my granddaughter, Hannah. Oh, and now, with the help of the World Wide Web, I can share them with you. Simple little tales of life from years and years ago. In my last episode, I talked about my past. Oh hell, in every episode I talked about my past. But I talked about how I found it as I sort of traveled back in time along my road to the future. How's that for a confusing opening? Well, it's called history. Remember that famous quote, worn threadbare to the point of almost losing its relevance? Those who don't know history are destined to repeat it. Whether you credit Edmund Burke, George Santayana, or Winston Churchill with it, actually they all had their own version, the lesson is the same. If you think it's hogwash, let me put it to you this way. That's why they put rear-view mirrors on cars. If you insist on ignoring what's going on behind you, one of these days you're going to get it in the, well, get the picture? I can't say every bit of my life has been hunky-dory because I made a big deal about what happened in my past. But I understand where I came from and who I came from. I understand who they were, what they did, and why they did it. I understand what they did right and what they did wrong. I also know just enough about genetics to know I could be prone to some of their same mistakes, and maybe, just maybe, some of their strengths could be passed on to me. They left behind lessons I needed to learn. Yep, I keep a close eye on that rearview mirror. Now, as they say, enough about me. Now I'm going to talk about you and your past. Sort of. For those of you who know me, I'm going to talk about where you came from up in that little patch of the earth known as the Wallkill Valley, where you can find places like Walden, Montgomery, Maybrook, Pine Bush, Coldenham, St. Andrews, and all those dots on the map close by. But for all of you out there, wherever you are, at the same time, I could be talking about the dots on the map anywhere on this planet. Go ahead, or go ahead back to times before you. It's not all that hard. Go out and stand in your front yard, or on the road or the street where you live. Think about it. What was there? Who was there? Why? What happened? What did they do? Where did they go? What was their story? If you think your little world around you is filled only with your time, your essence, you are wrong. Stand on Clinton Street in the village of Montgomery, and maybe on a chilly morning in March, pay close attention. Maybe you'll see smoke and flames from the Great Fire of 1913, firemen falling down from the weight of ice building up on their clothes. Or some evening, stand on Main Street, Walden, close to where the Didsbury Theater once stood. Listen closely. You may hear the voice of Enrico Caruso or the music of John Philip Sousa. Walk through downtown Maybrook. Maybe you'll hear a symphony of ghostly steam locomotive whistles coming from where once sat one of the largest railroad yards on the East Coast. Maybe, if you look closely to the horizon to the southwest towards Middletown, you'll see and maybe hear a lonely Wright flyer named the Vin Fizz, piloted by Cal Rogers, on his way to the West Coast to complete the first transcontinental airplane flight, and followed by an O&W train with a support team headed up by Charles Taylor, builder of the Wright brothers' first aircraft engine. On a larger, far grander scale, think about all the famous U.S. military leaders and 2 presidents who went to college in Orange County. Need to know where? Look it up. On a smaller, but no less grander scale, maybe you'll see Lawrence Marcy and his sons on a dark, cold winter night driving a herd of dairy cows down River Road from the railroad station in Montgomery to home on East Searsville Road. All these apparitions really happened and had a significant impact on your life and, of course, on the rest of the world. Lon Morrissey and his herd of cows, maybe not so much, unless you were a family member, descendant, or close neighbor. His life and those cows matter to someone. Want to learn more about who you are? Learn more who they were. Who? Those who came before you, those who bore you, those who stood where you are now. Dig, search, ask questions, talk to your siblings and elders, talk to your neighbors. That's a modern day twist. Talk to your neighbors. You might have heard that old saying, all politics are local. Well, so is history. It's your history, your story. Learn it. Dig into your yearbooks. Go through your dressers and drawers and closets, old boxes and bags. I will guarantee you will find something. You will learn something you may need to know. Trust me. I thought I learned all I needed to know about my family, all the lessons I needed, until a few days ago. My wife handed me a little bag of old scraps of paper and newspaper clippings. They all belonged to my grandmother Score, back when she was a young woman. We knew her as Ma. Back then they called her Mattie. Almost all of the newspaper clippings were poems. Apparently 100 years ago, that was a popular thing in newspapers. The other pieces of paper were poems authored by her. Of all the things I knew about my grandmother, I never knew she was a poet. Someday, when I can better decipher her century-old faded handwriting on century-old paper, I'm going to post some of them. And just one more thing, talk about lessons to learn. She was a woman of strong faith. My family, she sort of had to be. Most of the newspaper poems expressed her mindset. Most revealing of these was one tiny newspaper clipping I almost missed, as it was folded within half a dozen larger clippings. On it, a lesson from over 100 years ago. Men should be judged not by their tint of skin, the gods they serve, the vintage that they drink, nor by the way they love, hate, or sin, but by the quality of thought they think. Can you imagine such profundity from years and years ago?